Be my wife. The 6-year-old boy stood in the hallway with his hands clasped together, looking at Violet like she held his entire world. She was just the maid, a woman from Cameroon scrubbing floors in a mansion owned by Korea's most dangerous businessman, a man whose name made grown men nervous, whose word could end careers or lives. And now his lonely son was proposing to her in a hallway while his father stood watching with an expression she couldn't read. What Violet didn't know, saying yes to playing with this child would lead to something impossible. 3 years later, she'd be standing at the altar marrying the boy's father, and the enemies who wanted to destroy him would come for her next. Your turn. Would you stay or run? Lonely child, dangerous father, becoming a target if you say yes. Comment with your city plus your answer, because I know Canada and Seoul are answering differently than London and New York. And if you're addicted to stories about impossible families that somehow work, subscribe. I've got more coming. Drop your city and comment. Stay or run below. Be my wife. The little boy, maybe 6 years old, stood in the hallway with his hands clasped together like he'd seen people do in the dramas his grandmother watched. His eyes were round and serious. Violet froze with the mop still in her hands, water dripping onto the floor she'd just cleaned. She blinked twice, trying to process what this child had just said to her. What? She let out a nervous laugh, the kind that bubbled up when something caught you completely off guard. Sweetie, I don't think... I'm serious. The boy stepped closer, his small face set with determination. You're nice to me. You don't yell. And you make the best sandwiches. Violet's heart squeezed a little. She'd only been working at this massive house for 3 weeks, cleaning rooms that seemed to go on forever. But this kid, Seung-min was his name, had attached himself to her from day one. Following her around, asking questions about everything, showing her his toy cars. That's very sweet, but Seung-min. The voice came from behind her, deep and calm but carrying weight that made the air feel different. Violet turned and nearly dropped her mop. The man standing there wore a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and his presence filled the entire hallway, even though he wasn't doing anything except existing. She'd seen him exactly twice since she started working here, once from across the garden, once disappearing into a room, and both times she'd made sure to be invisible. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Lim, had made it clear that the master of the house preferred his staff to be ghosts. Dad! Seung-min ran to him, grabbing his hand. I was just asking her to... I heard. The man's eyes flicked to Violet for half a second, before returning to his son. Something unreadable passed across his face. You can't ask people things like that, Seung-min. But why not? You said when you want something important, you should ask clearly. Violet pressed her lips together to keep from smiling. The kid had a point, probably. The man, his name was Tae-gyu, she'd learned, though no one ever said it above a whisper, let out a breath that might have been frustration, or maybe exhaustion. He crouched down to his son's level. That's for business meetings, not for... this. You're 6. Almost 7, Seung-min corrected. Almost 7, Tae-gyu agreed, and there was something gentle in his voice that surprised Violet. But still too young to be proposing to people. Seung-min's face fell. Oh. Violet knelt down too, unable to stop herself. Hey, Seung-min, that's really sweet of you to ask, okay? You're going to make someone very happy one day when you're all grown up. The boy looked at her with those big eyes. Promise? Promise. Tae-gyu stood up, and Violet did too, suddenly very aware that she was in a wet cleaning uniform, talking to probably the most powerful man in the country. Mrs. Lim had mentioned, in that careful way of hers, that Mr. Han owned half the businesses in the city, and the other half owed him favors. That his word could make or break empires. That he was someone you didn't bother with small talk. "I apologize for my son," he said, and his voice was still calm, still even. "He's going through a phase. It's fine, really." Violet picked up her mop, gripping it like a safety rope. "He's a sweet kid." Taegyu's eyes met hers for a real moment this time, and she couldn't read what was in them. "Thank you for being kind to him. Not everyone is." Before she could figure out how to respond to that, he placed a hand on Seung-min's shoulder. "Come on, your tutor's waiting." "But I don't want—" "Seung-min." The boy sighed dramatically but followed his father down the hall. He turned back once to wave at Violet, and she waved back with her free hand. When they disappeared around the corner, she let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of scrubbing floors in a house that felt more like a museum than a home, and now the owner knew she existed. Great. Just great. She went back to mopping, trying to ignore the way her hands were shaking just a little. The thing about being invisible was that you saw things, heard things. Over the next few days, Violet learned that Seung-min's mother had died 2 years ago. That Taegyu barely spent time at home because of his work. Work that no one talked about directly, but everyone understood, was dangerous in ways that didn't show up in newspapers. That Seung-min was lonely in this big house, with just tutors and housekeepers and bodyguards who weren't allowed to be his friends. She learned this from Mrs. Lim during lunch breaks, from the gardener who'd worked here for 10 years, from the way Seung-min's face lit up whenever anyone paid attention to him. It made her heart hurt. Violet had come to this country with almost nothing, just a suitcase and a hope that she could make enough money to send home to her younger siblings. The agency had placed her here, in this ridiculous mansion where one room was bigger than her entire apartment back home, and she'd been grateful for the job, even if it meant being invisible. But Seung-min made her want to be visible, just a little. "You're the only one who plays with him," Mrs. Lim said one afternoon while they folded laundry. The older woman's face was kind, but tired. "The other staff, they're afraid to get too close." "Why?" Violet smoothed out a tiny shirt. Probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. "Because Mr. Han's world is complicated. People think if you care about the boy, you might get caught up in things." Violet frowned. "That's sad. It's survival." Mrs. Lim paused, then added quietly, "But maybe sad too." "Yes." That evening, Violet was cleaning the library, because of course this house had a library, when Seung-min found her again. He was supposed to be in bed, but he stood in the doorway in his pajamas, looking small and lost. "Can't sleep?" she asked. He shook his head. "The house is too quiet." She set down her dust cloth. "Want to help me? I could use an assistant." His whole face changed. "Really? Really? You can tell me if I missed any spots." For the next 20 minutes, Seung-min followed her around, pointing at imaginary dust while chattering about his day, about the new fish in the pond, about how his tutor smelled like old books. Violet listened and responded, and felt something warm settle in her chest. She didn't notice Taegyu standing in the doorway until Seung-min suddenly went quiet. "Dad." The boy's voice got small. "I'm sorry. I know I should be in bed." "It's okay." Taegyu stepped into the room, and Violet immediately felt like she'd done something wrong, even though she hadn't. "But it's late. Come on." Seung-min trudged toward his father, shoulders slumped. Taegyu picked him up. The boy was small for almost 7, and Seung-min wrapped his arms around his neck. "Say good night," Taegyu said. "Good night, Violet." "Good night, Seung-min. Sleep well." Taegyu carried his son toward the door, then paused. Without turning around, he said, "Thank you." for making him smile. Before Violet could respond, they were gone. She stood there in the library, dust cloth in hand, feeling like something had shifted without her permission. The next morning, Mrs. Lim called her into the kitchen with an expression Violet couldn't read. "Mr. Han wants to see you." Violet's stomach dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" "I don't think so, but—" Mrs. Lim hesitated. "Just be careful what you say. Be respectful." The walk to Taegyu's office felt like miles, even though it was just down 2 hallways. Violet's mind raced through every possible thing she might have done wrong. Maybe letting Seung-min stay up late. Maybe overstepping by being too friendly. She knocked on the heavy door. "Come in." Taegyu sat behind a bobbed desk that looked like it belonged to someone who made decisions that changed lives. The room was dark wood and serious, but there was a child's drawing stuck to the wall behind him, stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Violet sat, hands folded in her lap to keep them still. Taegyu studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "How long have you been working here?" "Almost a month, sir." "And you came from Cameroon?" She nodded, surprised he knew that. "Yes, sir." "Why?" The question was simple, but felt loaded. Violet chose her words carefully. "To work, to help my family back home. There are jobs in Cameroon. Not ones that pay enough to send my brother and sister to school." Something flickered in his eyes. "You have siblings?" "2, 12 and 14. He leaned back in his chair. "Seung-min talks about you constantly." Violet's heart picked up speed. "I'm sorry if I've been—" "Don't apologize." He waved a hand. "He's happy. That's rare these days." She didn't know what to say to that. Taegyu was quiet for a long moment, then said, "My son needs stability, structure, but he also needs—" He paused, like he was choosing words that didn't come naturally. "Someone who sees him as a child, not as my heir or a responsibility to manage." Violet waited, not sure where this was going. "I want to change your position," Taegyu said. "You'd still work here, but primarily with Seung-min, making sure he eats, helping with his routine, spending time with him. Mrs. Lim can handle your cleaning duties." "Like a nanny?" "Like someone who cares." His eyes met hers directly. The pay would increase, significantly. Violet's mind spun. She hadn't expected this. "I don't have any formal training with children, but you're good with him. That's what matters. Can I ask why me?" Taegyu's expression softened just slightly. "Because when you look at my son, you see a lonely kid who needs a friend. Not a tool, not a weakness, just a child." The words hit somewhere deep. Violet thought about Seung-min's smile when she'd let him help with cleaning, about how his face fell when people dismissed him. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I'll do it." "Good." Taegyu stood, and she did too. "Start tomorrow. Mrs. Lim will give you the details." Violet turned to leave, then stopped. "Mr. Han." "Yes?" "Thank you for trusting me with him." For the first time, she saw something that might have been a smile cross his face, just barely. "Don't thank me yet. He's a handful when he wants to be." 3 months passed like water through fingers, fast and slow at the same time. Violet fell into a rhythm with Seung-min that felt natural, easy. Mornings started with breakfast together, the boy chattering about dreams he'd had, or questions about why the sky was blue, or whether fish got thirsty. Then his lessons with tutors. But Violet stayed nearby because Seung-min focused better when he knew she was there. Afternoons meant the garden, or reading, or building elaborate cities out of blocks. The lonely kid from her first week started to laugh more, started to run instead of walk, started to be 6, almost 7, instead of a tiny adult carrying weight he shouldn't have to carry. And Tae-gu noticed. He was around more now. Not a lot, but more. Sometimes he'd come home for dinner, sitting at the head of the long table while Seung-min told him about their day. Violet usually ate in the kitchen with the staff, but Seung-min insisted she sit with them, and Tae-gu never objected. Those dinners were strange at first. Violet didn't know how to talk to a man whose name made grown businessmen nervous, whose phone call seemed to decide fates. But Seung-min filled the silences, and gradually the awkwardness faded into something almost comfortable. "Violet taught me about constellations," Seung-min announced one evening, spearing a piece of carrot with his fork. "Did you know there's a bear in the sky? A whole bear?" Tae-gu glanced at Violet. "I didn't know that." "Two bears, actually," she said, "big and little." "Which one is me?" Seung-min asked. "Little bear, obviously." "And you're Big Bear," Violet laughed. "Sure, I'll be Big Bear." "What about Dad?" They both looked at Tae-gu, who seemed caught off guard by being included in this game. He recovered quickly, though. "I suppose I'm one of the other constellations." "The dragon one," Seung-min decided. "Because you're strong and protect us." Something passed over Tae-gu's face, something soft that disappeared so fast, Violet almost thought she'd imagined it. "The dragon. All right." After dinner, while Violet was getting Seung-min ready for bed, the boy said, "Dad seems happier too." Violet pulled his pajama shirt over his head. "Yeah?" "He smiles more now. Little smiles, but still." She hadn't noticed, but maybe Seung-min was right. Maybe the hard edges of this house were softening, just slightly. The shift happened on a Tuesday. Violet was in the garden with Seung-min, watching him chase butterflies, when Mrs. Lim came hurrying out with her phone in hand. Her face was pale. "You need to bring Seung-min inside," she said quietly. "Now." "What's wrong?" "Just do it. Please." Violet's stomach tightened. She called Seung-min over, ignoring his protests, and Mrs. Lim practically pushed them toward the house. Through the windows, Violet could see men in dark suits moving through rooms, checking corners, speaking into earpieces. Security. Something was wrong. She got Seung-min to his room, and he picked up on her fear. "Violet? What's happening?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Just let's read a book, okay?" But her hands shook as she pulled a book from the shelf, and Seung-min noticed everything. 20 minutes later, Tae-gu opened the door. He looked different. Sharper somehow. Dangerous in a way that reminded Violet that she didn't actually know this man at all. Not really. "Seung-min," he said. "I need to go handle something. You stay here with Violet." "But no arguing. Stay inside until I come back." Seung-min's lip wobbled. "Are you in trouble?" Tae-gu's expression softened just enough. "No. But I need to make sure some people understand the rules. I'll be back soon." He left before either of them could say anything else. The hours that followed were the longest of Violet's life. She played games with Seung-min, read to him, tried to keep him distracted, but her mind kept circling back to the security team, to Tae-gu's face, to Mrs. Lim's fear. She'd known, intellectually, that Tae-gu's business was dangerous. But knowing and seeing were different things. Around midnight, Seung-min finally fell asleep, curled up against her on his bed, and Violet didn't have the heart to move him. She sat there in the dim light, listening to every sound in the house until she heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened quietly. Tae-gu stood there, looking tired, but unhurt. His eyes went to his sleeping son, then to Violet. "Is he okay?" he asked softly. "Scared, but okay." Tae-gu nodded, rubbing a hand over his face. "I'm sorry you had to. This isn't what I wanted you to see." "What happened?" "Someone made a mistake, thought they could threaten my family to get leverage." His voice was cold. "They were wrong." "Family," the word echoed in Violet's head. "Are they She couldn't finish the question. They're alive, Tae-gyu said, understanding. Scared, but alive. I don't deal in unnecessary violence. The relief she felt surprised her. Tae-gyu crossed the room and gently lifted Seung-min, who mumbled in his sleep, but didn't wake. He laid his son properly in the bed and pulled the covers up. For a moment, he just stood there, looking down at the boy with an expression so tender it made Violet's throat tight. He's lucky to have you, she whispered. I'm the lucky one. Tae-gyu turned to her. Thank you for keeping him calm. Of course, they stood there in the quiet room, and something hung in the air between them, something unnamed and complicated. You should get some rest, Tae-gyu finally said. Tomorrow will be normal again. But as Violet walked to her room, she wondered if anything would feel normal after tonight. The next few weeks brought changes nobody talked about, but everyone felt. More security around the house. Tae-gyu home more often, like he didn't want to let Seung-min out of his sight for too long, and something different in how he looked at Violet. Not suspicious exactly, but aware. She caught him watching sometimes when she was playing with Seung-min, when she was reading to the boy or helping him with his letters. His expression was always unreadable, but the attention made her skin prickle with an awareness she didn't want to examine too closely. Miss Violet? Seung-min asked one afternoon while they were painting. Why doesn't Dad have a wife? The question came out of nowhere, making Violet nearly drop her brush. I don't know, sweetheart. That's something you'd have to ask him. I did. He said he was too busy. Well, running all his businesses takes a lot of time. But you have time, Seung-min said with a 6-year-old's logic. And you're busy with me. So probably he could have time if he wanted to. Violet didn't know how to respond to that. Seung-min dabbed purple paint onto his paper. I think he's lonely, like I was before you came. The observation was so sharp it hurt. Maybe, Violet said carefully, but being alone and being lonely aren't always the same thing. They feel the same, though. God, this kid was too smart for his own good sometimes. That evening, Tae-gyu asked to speak with her after Seung-min went to bed. They met in his office, the same one from months ago, but it felt different now. Less intimidating, maybe. Seung-min's birthday is next week, Tae-gyu said. He'll be 7. Violet smiled. I know. He reminds me every day. He wants a party, a real one, with other children. That sounds nice. Tae-gyu's jaw tightened slightly. The problem is that most parents don't want their children around mine, because of who I am, what I do. The words were matter-of-fact, but Violet heard the anger underneath. Not at her, at a world that punished a child for his father's choices. So we'll make it special anyway, she said. Just us. We can do games, decorations, make it feel like a real party even if it's small. He wants to invite you. Well, yes, I assumed. No. Tae-gyu met her eyes. He wants you there as a guest, not staff. He was very specific about that. Oh. And I think... Tae-gyu paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I think he's right. You're not just staff anymore, Violet. Not to him. Not to... He didn't finish that sentence. Violet's heart did something complicated in her chest. Okay, I'll be a guest. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment, and Violet gathered her courage. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you do it? This business that makes people afraid? She expected him to shut down, to tell her it wasn't her concern. But instead, Tae-gyu leaned back in his chair and looked at her like he was really considering the question. My father built this empire through fear and violence, he said finally. When he died, I inherited it, along with all the enemies and debts and blood that came with it. I could have walked away, but He gestured vaguely. Everything I do now, every decision, every threat, is to protect what's mine. To make sure Seung-min never has to fight the battles I've fought. Is it working? A ghost of a smile. Ask me in 20 years. Violet thought about that little boy upstairs who just wanted friends at his birthday party, who asked about constellations and whether fish got thirsty. He's a good kid. He'll be okay whatever happens. Because of you, Taegyu said quietly. You've given him something I couldn't. Lightness. Joy. The compliment settled warm in her chest. He makes it easy. Still. Taegyu's eyes held hers. Thank you. The moment stretched between them. Too long to be casual, too loaded to be simple. And Violet felt something shift. Something she absolutely could not let shift. She stood up quickly. I should go. Early morning tomorrow. Right, yes. But as she reached the door, Taegyu said her name. Just her name, nothing else. She turned back. I'm glad you're here, he said. In this house. With us. The words shouldn't have meant as much as they did. Seung-min's birthday party was small, but perfect. They decorated the garden with streamers and balloons, set up games that Seung-min had chosen himself, and Mrs. Lim made a cake shaped like a race car, because Seung-min was obsessed with cars lately. The guest list was tiny, just household staff who'd been brave enough to care about the boy, and one of Taegyu's business associates, who had a daughter, Seung-min's age, but Seung-min's face when he saw everything. Pure magic. This is the best birthday ever, he announced, throwing his arms around Violet's waist. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome, birthday boy. She ruffled his hair. Now go play before we have to do the boring cake part. He ran off with the little girl. Sumi was her name. And for the next 2 hours, the garden filled with actual children's laughter. It sounded strange in a place that was usually so quiet, but good strange. Taegyu stood off to the side, watching his son with an expression that made Violet's chest ache. He'd taken the day off work, the whole day, and wore casual clothes that made him look younger, more human. You did good, he said when she walked over. Look at him. Seung-min was currently explaining the rules of some game he'd invented to Sumi, using elaborate hand gestures and serious expressions. He's happy, Violet agreed. That's all that matters. He asked me this morning if we could do this every year, exactly like this. And what did you say? I said yes. Taegyu glanced at her, which means you're stuck with us for a while. The "ias" made her stomach flutter in a way she tried to ignore. There are worse fates. They stood there watching Seung-min play, and Violet was so focused on the boy that she didn't notice the way Taegyu kept looking at her instead of his son. Didn't notice how his expression had gone soft, in a way it never did for business associates or security teams. Didn't notice, or maybe didn't want to notice. After cake, which Seung-min declared the best cake in the history of cakes, and after presents, which included a toy car from Violet that made him scream with joy, the party wound down. Sumi's father collected her, and the staff filtered back to their duties, leaving just Seung-min, Taegyu, and Violet in the garden as evening settled in. Can Violet stay for dinner? Seung-min asked, chocolate frosting still smudged on his cheek. Please. It's my birthday. Taegyu smiled. I think we can make an exception. They ate on the terrace as the sky turned purple and gold, and Seung-min talked non-stop about his party, about his presents, about how Sumi had promised to visit again. His joy was infectious, and even Taegyu seemed lighter than usual. Best birthday ever, Seung-min said for the 10th time, yawning. I mean it. I believe you, Violet said, standing to clear dishes. Now come on, birthday boy needs sleep. But I'm not tired. Another yawn cut him off. Tae-gyu scooped him up in one smooth motion. "Let's go, champ." Violet followed them inside and helped get Sung-min ready for bed. The boy fought sleep like always, but eventually his eyes closed and his breathing evened out. "Thank you," Tae-gyu whispered as they stood by Sung-min's bed. "For all of this. For him." "You don't have to keep thanking me," Violet whispered back. "I love spending time with him." "I know, that's why. It matters." They left the room quietly, and in the hallway, Tae-gyu hesitated. "Do you have a few minutes? I wanted to... There's something I'd like to show you." Violet probably should have said no, should have made some excuse about being tired or having things to do. But instead she said, "Okay." He led her through the house to a room she'd never entered, his private study, separate from his office. It was smaller, more personal. Books lined the walls, and there was a desk covered in papers and photographs. Tae-gyu picked up one of the photos and handed it to her. A woman looked out from the frame, beautiful and smiling, holding a baby. "Sung-min's mother," Violet said softly. "Jiyeon." "Yes." Tae-gyu's voice was careful. "She died in a car accident when Sung-min was 4. He doesn't remember her very well. I'm sorry. She was good. Too good for this life, for me. But she tried anyway." He took the photo back, studying it. "I loved her, but I don't think I knew how to show it. I was always working, always handling problems. And then she was gone, and I had this little boy who needed me, and I had no idea how to be what he needed." Violet's throat tightened. "You're doing better than you think." "Only because you're here." Tae-gyu set the photo down and turned to face her fully. Seung-min's not the only one who's been happier these past months. The air between them changed, became heavy with things that shouldn't be said. "Mr. Han." "Tae-gyu," he said quietly. "Please, just Tae-gyu." "Tae-gyu." She tried to find words that would redirect this without hurting him. "I work for you. I take care of your son. This can't." "I know." He stepped back, giving her space. "I know all the reasons why this is complicated, why I shouldn't feel." He stopped himself. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that you've made this house feel like a home again. Both of you. You and Sung-min. You've brought light back." Violet's heart hammered against her ribs. "I care about him so much, about both of you. But you're right," Tae-gyu finished. "I know you're right." They stood there in painful silence, and Violet wished things were different, wished she was just a woman, and he was just a man, and there were no complications about power or jobs or positions. But wishes didn't change reality. "I should go," she said finally. "Get some sleep." "Of course. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." "You didn't," she met his eyes. "But thank you for being honest." She left before either of them could say anything else they'd regret. The next few weeks were awkward in a way they hadn't been before. Tae-gyu was polite, professional, kept his distance. Violet threw herself into caring for Sung-min, into making sure the boys' days were full and happy. They didn't have dinners together anymore, didn't run into each other in hallways as often. Mrs. Lim noticed. "Did something happen?" she asked one morning while they were preparing Sung-min's breakfast. "No," Violet lied. "Everything's fine. You're both miserable. We're fine." But she wasn't fine. She missed the easy conversations, missed seeing Tae-gyu's rare smiles, missed the feeling of being part of something bigger than just her job. And apparently Sung-min noticed too. "Why doesn't Dad eat with us anymore?" he asked one evening, pushing rice around his plate. "He's busy with work, sweetheart." "He's always busy with work." But he made time before. Violet didn't have an answer for that. Sung-min set down his fork. "Did I do something wrong?" "What?" "No, absolutely not." "Then what happened?" Those big eyes looked at her with too much understanding for a 7-year-old. You and Dad used to be friends. Now you're not. We're still friends. You avoid each other. I'm not stupid. God, this kid. It's complicated, Seung-min. Is it because you're going to leave? His voice got small. Are you leaving us? Violet's heart cracked. She knelt down next to his chair and took his hands. I'm not leaving. I promise. I'm here as long as you want me here. Then fix it, Seung-min said. Whatever's wrong with you and Dad, fix it. Please. I don't like it when everyone's sad. She pulled him into a hug and felt him cling to her. Okay, I'll try. I promise I'll try. That night, after Seung-min was asleep, Violet found Tae-gyu in his office. He looked up when she knocked, surprise crossing his face. We need to talk, she said. All right. She sat down across from him. Whatever this is between us, we can't let it affect Seung-min. He's noticed. He thinks something's wrong. Tae-gyu's expression tightened. I never meant... I know, neither did I. But we need to figure out how to be around each other without it being weird. You're right. He ran a hand through his hair. I've been avoiding you because I thought it would be easier. But it's not. It's just making everything worse. So what do we do? They looked at each other across the desk, and Violet saw the same confusion and frustration she felt reflected in his eyes. We be honest, Tae-gyu said finally. I care about you. More than I should, probably. But Seung-min comes first. He always comes first. For me, too, Violet agreed. He's the most important thing. So we... What? Pretend the rest doesn't exist? We acknowledge it exists, but agree it can't go anywhere. The words hurt to say. We focus on being his parents. Not actual parents. But you know what I mean. The people who love him and want what's best for him. Tae-gyu considered this. Can you do that? Be around me every day, knowing... Can you? A long pause. Then, I'll have to. They sat in the weight of that decision, and Violet felt something settle in her chest. It wasn't happiness exactly, but it was better than the awkward distance of the past weeks. Friends? She offered. Tae-gyu's smile was sad, but genuine. Friends. It was the right decision. The only decision. So, why did it feel like losing something she'd never actually had? 6 months passed, and the new normal became just normal. Tae-gyu was around more, joining them for meals and bedtime stories and weekend outings to the park where Seung-min could run and be a regular kid. The three of them fell into a rhythm that looked like a family from the outside, even though Violet reminded herself constantly that it wasn't real. Seung-min thrived. His tutors reported that he was excelling in his studies, and more importantly, he smiled all the time. The lonely little boy from Violet's first day at the house had transformed into a confident, happy child. And Violet? She tried not to think too hard about how this had become her whole world. How going back to Cameroon, something she'd planned to do eventually, now felt impossible. Because leaving would mean leaving Seung-min, leaving this house, leaving. She didn't let herself finish that thought. The trouble started on a Tuesday. Again. Violet was at the market with Mrs. Lim, picking up fresh vegetables for the week, when a woman approached them. She was elegant, polished, wearing clothes that screamed money. "Excuse me," the woman said in Korean, then switched to accented English when she saw Violet. "You work for Tae-gyu Han, yes?" Violet's guard went up immediately. "Who's asking?" "My name is Soman." The woman's smile was sharp. "I'm an old friend of Tae-gyu's. Very old. Very close." Mrs. Lim touched Violet's arm in warning, but the woman continued. "I've been away for a while, but I'm back now. And I heard he has a son." Soman's eyes narrowed. "I also heard he has a foreign maid playing house with them." The words stung more than they should have. I take care of Sung-min, that's all. Is it? Sung-min stepped closer. Because from what I hear, you've made yourself quite comfortable in that house, in that family. We should go, Mrs. Lim said quietly, tugging Violet's arm. But Sung-min wasn't finished. Tell Tae-gyu I'll be visiting soon. We have so much to catch up on. She walked away before Violet could respond, leaving her standing there with her heart pounding and her mind racing. Who was that? She asked Mrs. Lim. The older woman's face was tight. Trouble. That's who she was. Sung-min showed up at the house 3 days later. Violet was in the garden with Sung-min when she heard the commotion at the front door. A woman's voice, bright and confident, and then Tae-gyu's deeper tone responding. She couldn't make out words, but something about the exchange made her stomach twist. Who's that? Seung-min asked, looking up from the flowers he was examining. I don't know. Let's go see. They walked inside to find Tae-gyu in the foyer with Sung-min, who was dressed like she was attending a gala instead of dropping by someone's house. She looked beautiful and polished and completely at home, in a way that made Violet feel suddenly aware of her simple clothes and lack of makeup. Seung-min. Sung-min's face lit up. Oh my goodness, look at you. Last time I saw you, you were tiny. Seung-min moved closer to Violet, shy in that way he got around strangers. Hi. You don't remember me, do you? That's okay. You were very small. Sung-min's eyes flicked to Violet, and her smile sharpened. And you must be the help I've heard so much about. This is Violet, Tae-gyu said, and there was an edge to his voice. She takes care of Sung-min. How sweet. Sung-min's tone said it was anything but. Well, I won't keep you from your duties. I'm sure you have things to clean. Violet felt her face heat. Before she could respond, Tae-gyu said, Actually, Violet was just about to join us for lunch, weren't you? It wasn't a question. Yes, Violet said, lifting her chin. I was. Sung-min's smile didn't reach her eyes. How modern. Lunch was painful. Sung-min dominated the conversation, talking about her time abroad, about mutual friends that Tae-gyu apparently had, about memories from before. Before Sung-min. Before Ji-yeon died. Before everything. And through it all, she touched Tae-gyu's arm, laughed at her own jokes, made it very clear that she and Tae-gyu had history that went deeper than friendship. Sung-min picked at his food, unusually quiet. Violet wanted to comfort him, but felt frozen under Sung-min's watchful gaze. So, Tae-gyu, Sung-min said, setting down her fork. Now that I'm back, we should spend more time together. Maybe dinner? Just the two of us? Tae-gyu's expression was carefully neutral. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? We used to have such wonderful times together. Sung-min's hand covered his. I know things ended badly before, but that was years ago. We're both different people now. Sung-min, I made a mistake, she said, and her voice dropped to something softer, more vulnerable. Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life, but I'm here now. I'm ready to try again. Violet felt like she was intruding on something private. She stood up. Excuse me. I should check on something in the kitchen. Take Sung-min with you, Tae-gyu said quickly. Please. She did, grateful for the excuse to leave. In the kitchen, Sung-min climbed onto a stool and looked at her with serious eyes. I don't like her, he announced. Sung-min, that's not nice. She's mean. She was being mean to you. Violet couldn't argue with that. It's okay, sweetheart. I can handle it. Why does Dad know her? Good question. They were friends before, a long time ago. Are they going to be friends again? I don't know. But the fear in her chest said she might know exactly what would happen. Sung-min was beautiful, polished, from Taegyu's world, in a way Violet never would be, if she really wanted him back. Mrs. Lim came into the kitchen, her face grim. She finally left, but not before making it very clear she'll be back. Great, Violet muttered. Mr. Han wants to see you, in his office. Violet's stomach dropped. Watch Sung-min. Of course. The walk to Taegyu's office felt endless. When she knocked and entered, he was standing by the window with his back to her, tension visible in every line of his body. I'm sorry about that, he said without turning around. So-min showing up like that. I should have warned you she was back in town. It's fine. It's not fine. He turned to face her. The things she said to you are true, though, aren't they? Violet crossed her arms. I am the help. I do work for you. You're not just... Taegyu stopped himself, running a hand through his hair in frustration. So-min and I have history. We were together years ago before Jian. It ended badly. She wanted things I couldn't give her. Wanted me to leave the business, leave everything. When I wouldn't, she left. And now she's back. And now she's back, he agreed. But that doesn't mean anything. What we had is over. Violet wanted to believe him, wanted to ignore the way So-min had looked at him like she had every right to him. She seems to think you two could start again. I don't care what she thinks. Taegyu. Violet took a breath. Maybe you should consider it. She's from your world. She understands your life. And Seung-min needs a mother figure who can actually be that for him, not just someone who... Don't. Taegyu's voice was sharp. Don't do that. Don't diminish what you are to him. I'm his caretaker. That's all I can ever be. That's not all you are. He stepped closer. You're the person he runs to when he's scared. The person whose approval he wants. The person who makes him laugh and feel safe and loved. That's not nothing, Violet. Tears pricked her eyes. But it's not enough either. Not in the long run. Why not? Because he'll grow up, and he'll realize that I'm not actually his family, that I was just someone who worked here. And maybe it would be better if he had someone real. Someone like So-min, who could actually be part of this family legitimately. Taegyu looked at her like she'd slapped him. You really think I'd choose someone who looks down on you? Who made Seung-min uncomfortable in his own home? Who only wants me now that I'm successful and powerful? I think you should choose what's best for Seung-min. You are what's best for Seung-min, Taegyu said. And if you can't see that, then... He stopped, shaking his head. I need some air. He left the office, leaving Violet standing there with her heart in pieces and no idea how to fix anything. So-min became a regular presence over the next weeks. She showed up for dinners, brought expensive gifts for Seung-min that he politely accepted, but never played with, and made herself comfortable in the house, like she belonged there. And Taegyu let her, though Violet couldn't tell if it was because he wanted to, or because he didn't know how to say no. The worst part was watching So-min slowly try to insert herself into Seung-min's life. Let me help you with that, she'd say when Seung-min struggled, with homework, even though Violet was already there. Oh, you like cars? I know so much about cars. She didn't. Seung-min knew she didn't, but he was too polite to call her out on it. Violet tried to stay in the background, tried to let So-min have her chance. Maybe this was what was supposed to happen. Maybe this was what Seung-min and Taegyu needed. A woman who could be a real wife and mother, not just someone playing the part. But Seung-min grew quieter, less happy. He started having nightmares again, something that hadn't happened in months. I don't want her here, he told Violet one night after she woke him from a bad dream. Why does she keep coming back? Your dad. They're friends? You're his friend too. But you don't try to change everything. Violet held him until he fell back asleep, her heart breaking. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. Violet was helping Seung-min with his reading when Somin swept into the room. "There you are. Seung-min, darling, I have a surprise for you." Seung-min looked up warily. "What kind of surprise?" "I've enrolled you in a proper school, starting next week. Isn't that exciting?" Violet's blood went cold. "What?" Somin barely glanced at her. "Seung-min needs to be around other children his age, not stuck in this house with tutors all day. I talked to Taegu about it, and he agreed." "I don't want to go to school," Seung-min said, his voice small. "I like learning here." "Don't be silly. All children go to school." Somin crouched down to his level, but her smile was forced. "You'll make so many friends." "But no buts. This is what's best for you." Violet found her voice. "Shouldn't this be something we discuss first? All of us?" Somin stood up, her smile sharpening. "I discussed it with his father. That's what matters. You're just the help, after all." The words hit like a slap, but before Violet could respond, Taegu appeared in the doorway. His expression was dark. "Somin, a word. Now." "But I was just telling Seung-min about." "Now." Somin followed him out, and Violet heard their voices rise in the hallway. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Taegu was furious. Seung-min grabbed her hand. "I don't want to go to school. Don't make me go." "I won't let that happen," Violet promised, hoping she could keep it. 10 minutes later, Taegu came back alone. His jaw was tight, his eyes harder than Violet had ever seen them. "Seung-min," he said gently, "can you give me and Violet a minute?" "But please, buddy, it's important." Seung-min reluctantly left, dragging his feet. Once they were alone, Taegu turned to Violet. "I'm sorry. I never agreed to enrolling him in school. Somin made that up." Relief flooded through her. "Oh, thank God." "I told her she's not welcome here anymore." His voice was flat. She crossed a line, multiple lines. "Taegu, no. I should have ended this weeks ago. I don't know what I thought. That maybe she was right about Seung-min needing more structure, more exposure to normal life. But she doesn't care about what's best for him. She just wants to prove she belongs here." Violet didn't know what to say. Taegu stepped closer. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." Her heart started racing. "Okay. Are you staying because you love Seung-min, or are you staying out of obligation to a job?" The question was so direct it took her breath away. Both. I love him so much it hurts, but also this is my job." "It doesn't have to be." She stared at him. "What? What if it wasn't about a job anymore? What if it was just us, the three of us as a family?" Violet's mind spun. "I don't understand what you're asking." Taegu took a breath. "I'm asking if you would consider staying, not as Seung-min's caretaker, as part of this family for real." "You mean as his nanny, but with a fancier title?" "No." Taegu's eyes were intense. "I mean as someone I'm falling in love with. Someone I want in my life and in Seung-min's life permanently." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect and terrifying. "I can't," Violet's voice broke. "Taegu, I don't fit in your world. Somin made that very clear. I don't care about fitting in my world. I care about what makes Seung-min happy. What makes me happy." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "You've made this house feel like a home. You've made my son smile again. You've made me remember what it feels like to want something beyond just survival and power." Tears spilled down Violet's cheeks. "What if it doesn't work? What if people in your life can't accept? Then they can leave, all of them." His grip tightened. "I spent years doing what other people expected, marrying who they approved of, running the business the way my father did, and it made me miserable. I won't do that anymore. And if Seung-min gets hurt because of this, he'll get hurt worse if you leave. I know that much. Violet closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision crushing down on her. This was crazy, impossible. She was a maid from Cameroon, and he was one of the most powerful men in the country. The logistics alone were nightmare fuel. But then she thought about Seung-min's face when she read to him, about the way Tae-gyu smiled at her over breakfast, about how this house had become home in a way nowhere else ever had. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, Tae-gyu admitted. But I'm more scared of losing you. She opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the vulnerability there, the hope, the fear that matched her own. Okay, she said. Okay, let's try. Let's figure out how to make this work. The smile that broke across his face was worth every risk, every complication, every impossible thing they'd have to figure out. He pulled her into a hug, careful and gentle, and Violet let herself sink into it. Though herself believed that maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. From the hallway came a loud whisper. Are they kissing? Seung-min, Mrs. Lim's voice hissed. Give them privacy. But I want to know if Violet's staying forever. Tae-gyu laughed against Violet's shoulder, and she felt the sound rumble through both of them. I think we have an audience. I think you're right. They pulled apart, and Tae-gyu called out. Seung-min, you can come in. The boy burst into the room like he'd been launched from a cannon. So are you staying? Forever? Like really forever? Violet knelt down to his level. Would you want that? Yes! Seung-min threw his arms around her neck. I've been wishing for this forever. Then yes, she said, hugging him back. I'm staying. Seung-min pulled back just enough to look at his father. Does this mean Violet's going to be my mom? Tae-gyu glanced at Violet, a question in his eyes. She nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Yeah, buddy, Tae-gyu said, softly. If she wants to be. I want to be, Violet managed. So much. And just like that, the broken pieces of all three of them started to fit together into something whole. The next few months were an adjustment. News that Tae-gyu Han was dating his son's caretaker spread through his social circles like wildfire. Some people were scandalized, some were curious. Most were smart enough to keep their opinions to themselves because Tae-gyu made it very clear he didn't care what anyone thought. There were challenges. Violet had to learn to navigate a world where people judged her constantly, where every outfit choice and word was analyzed. She had to learn which of Tae-gyu's associates were genuine and which were just pretending to accept her while plotting behind the scenes. But she also discovered she was stronger than she'd thought. Let them talk, she told Tae-gyu one night after a particularly uncomfortable business dinner. I'm not going anywhere. He'd smiled at her like she'd hung the moon. Seung-min was the easiest part. He blossomed with both his parents actually present and happy, becoming more confident and outgoing. He started calling Violet Mom naturally, without anyone pushing him to, and every time he did, her heart felt too big for her chest. The hard part came 6 months later, when someone from Tae-gyu's past tried to use Violet to get to him. She was leaving the market when a car pulled up beside her. 2 men got out, polite but firm, saying that Mr. Kwon wanted to speak with her. Violet knew that name, knew that Kwon was one of Tae-gyu's rivals, someone who'd been trying to take over parts of the business for years. I don't think so, she said, backing away. It's not a request. But before they could get closer, another car screeched to a stop, and 3 of Tae-gyu's security team emerged. The men from Kwon's crew backed off immediately, hands raised. Mr. Han will hear about this, one of Tae-gyu's men said coldly. They escorted Violet home, and she'd never been so grateful for those intimidating bodyguards who usually made her nervous. Tae-gyu was home within the hour, pale and shaking in a way she'd never seen before. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine. They didn't get close enough." He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight it almost hurt. "I can't. If anything happened to you." "Nothing happened. Your team was there." "They shouldn't have had to be." Taegyu pulled back, his eyes dark. "This is my fault. I brought you into this world, and now you're a target." "Stop." Violet cupped his face in her hands. "I chose this. I chose you. I knew it came with risks. But no buts. We deal with it together. That's what family does." The word family seemed to steady him. He nodded, pressing his forehead to hers. Together. Together. And they did deal with it. Taegyu handled Kwan in whatever way powerful men handled threats. Violet didn't ask for details, and the message was clear. Violet and Seung-min were off limits. Life settled back into rhythm, better than before. A year after that conversation in his office, Taegyu asked Violet to marry him. It wasn't dramatic or fancy. Just the three of them in the garden where Seung-min had first told Violet to be his wife, and Taegyu got down on one knee with his son grinning beside him. "We've been a family for a while now," Taegyu said, "but I'd like to make it official, if you'll have us." Seung-min held out the ring box like it was the most important mission of his life. "Both of us are asking," the boy added seriously, "because this is a package deal." Violet laughed through tears. "Yes, to both of you. Always. Yes." The wedding was small, just close friends, and the staff who'd become family. Mrs. Lim cried through the whole ceremony. Seung-min was the ring bearer and took his job so seriously that everyone melted. And when Taegyu kissed her, and Seung-min cheered loudly enough to make everyone laugh. 2 years later, Violet sat in the garden watching Seung-min play with his little sister, born just 6 months ago, with her father's eyes and her mother's smile. The house that had once been so quiet and cold was now filled with laughter and music and the chaos that came with children. Taegyu came out with 2 cups of tea, handing her one before sitting beside her on the bench. "Happy?" he asked. "Deliriously." "Good." He kissed her temple. "Because I plan to keep you delirious for the next 60 years or so. Only 60. I'm being conservative." Seung-min ran over, grass stains on his knees. "Mom, the baby just grabbed my finger. She's so strong." "She gets that from you," Violet said, ruffling his hair. "Can we have another one? A brother this time?" Taegyu choked on his tea. "How about we wait a bit on that? But I want a big family, with lots of siblings and cousins and—" "One thing at a time, buddy," Violet said, laughing. Seung-min ran back to his sister, already telling her about all the things they'd do when she was older. "He's going to be an amazing big brother," Taegyu said. "He already is." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children, and Violet thought about that little boy who'd asked her to be his wife years ago, about how she'd thought it was just a child's joke, not knowing it would lead to this, to a family she never imagined having, to a love that had healed parts of her she didn't know were broken. "I love you," Taegyu said quietly. "I love you too." And in the garden of the house that had become home, with their children's laughter floating on the breeze, Violet knew she'd found exactly where she was meant to be. A call came at 2 a.m. Violet was asleep when her phone vibrated on the nightstand, the harsh ring cutting through the quiet. She fumbled for it, heart already racing because nothing good ever came from calls at this hour. "Mrs. Han." The voice was clipped, professional. "This is Kim from Mr. Han's security team. There's been an accident." The world tilted. "What kind of accident? Where is he? Is he—" "He's alive, at Seoul Memorial Hospital. You should come now." The drive was a blur. Mrs. Lim stayed with the sleeping children, while Violet threw on clothes and let the security team rush her through empty streets. Her mind kept cycling through worst-case scenarios, each one more terrible than the last. What if he was badly hurt? What if she lost him? What if Seung-min and the baby had to grow up without their father? The hospital was stark white and antiseptic. A doctor met her in the waiting room, his expression carefully neutral. Your husband was in a car collision. The other driver ran a red light going probably 90 miles per hour. Mr. Han's car took most of the impact on the driver's side. Violet's knees went weak. Someone guided her to a chair. He has a severe concussion, 3 broken ribs, a fractured arm, and significant bruising. We're monitoring him for internal bleeding, but so far everything looks stable. Can I see him? He's sedated right now, but yes, room 304. Violet's hands shook as she walked down the hallway. Nothing prepared her for seeing Taegyu in that hospital bed. This man, who always seemed so strong and untouchable, now hooked up to machines with bandages covering half his face and his arm in a cast. She pulled a chair close and took his uninjured hand carefully. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm right here." His fingers twitched slightly, maybe responding to her voice, maybe just a reflex. The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. She'd almost lost him. If the impact had been just a little different, if the other car had hit just a few inches over. "You don't get to leave us," she said through her tears. "You hear me? We need you. Seung-min needs you. The baby needs you. I need you." The first 3 days were the hardest. Taegyu drifted in and out of consciousness, confused when he was awake, restless when he wasn't. The doctors assured Violet this was normal with severe concussions, but watching him struggle to remember where he was or what had happened broke her heart every single time. She barely left his room. Mrs. Lim brought the children to visit during the day. Seung-min trying so hard to be brave, even though his eyes were red from crying. The baby too young to understand why her father was in this strange place. "When's Dad coming home?" Seung-min asked on the 3rd day, sitting in the chair Violet had basically claimed as hers. "Soon, sweetheart. He just needs time to heal. He looks different. I know. The bruises will fade, though. He's going to be okay. Promise." Violet looked at her husband, at the steady rise and fall of his chest, at the monitor showing his vitals were improving. Promise. That night, Taegyu woke up more lucid than he'd been since the accident. His eyes found Violet immediately, and this time, recognition sparked in them right away. "Hey," he managed, his voice rough, from the breathing tube they'd removed that morning. "Hey yourself." She moved closer, careful not to jostle him. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck, which I guess basically happened." "A car, actually. But close enough." He tried to smile, but winced instead. "How long have I been here?" 3 days. "And you've been here the whole time?" It wasn't a question. Where else would I be? Taegyu's good hand found hers. "The kids are fine. Mrs. Lim has them. They've been visiting. Seung-min made you about 100 drawings that are probably covering every surface in this room. I need to see them. You will. Tomorrow. Right now you need to rest." But Taegyu's eyes were troubled. The other driver. Did they? Survived. Drunk. He's in custody. Violet's voice hardened slightly. "Your lawyers are handling it." He nodded, then immediately regretted it based on his expression. "I was thinking about you, right before it happened. Thinking about how I needed to get home, because you had that thing with Seung-min's school in the morning, and I wanted to help." Fresh tears pricked Violet's eyes. "Well, now I'm thinking you need to stop trying to do everything yourself. You have people who can drive you places, who can handle late-night meetings. I know, He paused, struggling for words. "I don't know how to slow down sometimes." "Then learn. Because I can't go through this again, Taegyu. When they called and said you'd been in an accident, I felt like my heart stopped. His fingers tightened around hers. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They sat in silence for a while, just holding hands, and Violet felt something settle in her chest. He was here. He was going to be okay. That was what mattered. Recovery was slow and frustrating. Tae-gyu was used to being in control, to managing everything and everyone around him. Being dependent on nurses and doctors and physical therapists made him irritable in a way Violet had never seen before. I don't need help walking to the bathroom, he snapped at a nurse on day 5. Yes, you do, Violet said calmly, because you nearly fell yesterday trying to do it alone. That was different. It was exactly the same. Stop being stubborn and let people help you. He glared at her, but there was no real heat in it. You're supposed to be on my side. I am on your side. That's why I'm not letting you hurt yourself worse by being proud. The nurse wisely left them alone. Tae-gyu sighed, wincing at the pain it caused. I hate this. Hate being weak. Violet sat on the edge of his bed, careful to avoid his injuries. You're not weak. You're healing. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like it. I know. She brushed hair back from his forehead gently. But you're also not alone in this. You have me. You have the kids. You have an entire staff of people who want to help. Let us. His eyes met hers, and some of the frustration faded. How did I get so lucky? Seung-min proposed to me when he was 6. You just benefited from his excellent taste. That got a real smile from him, small but genuine. Best decision he ever made. When Tae-gyu finally came home 2 weeks later, the entire household had prepared. Mrs. Lim had arranged his recovery room on the first floor, so he wouldn't have to manage stairs. The physical therapist had a schedule worked out. The chef had planned meals that would help with healing, and Seung-min had made a banner that said, "Welcome home, Dad," in letters that got progressively bigger and more crooked. This is too much, Tae-gyu said, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. It's exactly enough, Violet corrected. Now come on, let's get you settled. The first few days home were an adjustment. Tae-gyu struggled with accepting help, with moving slowly, with being present but not productive in the way he was used to. But gradually, something started to shift. He spent more time with Seung-min, listening to the boy read, or helping with homework from his recovery chair. He held the baby during her afternoon nap time, both of them dozing together in the sunlight. He talked with Violet, really talked, about things they'd never made time for before. I've been thinking, he said one afternoon, while Violet was helping him with the exercises the physical therapist had prescribed. About the business, about how much time I spend managing things that other people could handle. Okay, what if I stepped back? Not completely, but more. Delegated more. Trusted my team to handle the day-to-day operations. Violet paused in adjusting his arm. Are you sure? You've never wanted to do that before? Because I thought I had to control everything or it would all fall apart. But lying in that hospital bed, all I could think about was how I might never see you again. Never see Seung-min grow up. Never watch the baby take her first steps. His voice got thick. What's the point of building an empire if I'm too dead or too busy to enjoy what I actually have? She understood then. This wasn't just about the accident. It was about choosing life over survival, family over empire. I think that's probably the wisest thing you've ever said, he smiled. Don't get used to it. I'm still going to be stubborn about other things. Oh, I know. You're already arguing with the physical therapist about your exercise limits. That's different. He's being unreasonable. Violet laughed and kissed his forehead. Sure he is. 3 months after the accident, Tae-gyu was cleared to return to normal activities with some limitations. The first thing he did was take the family to the park, something he'd promised Seung-min weeks ago, but hadn't been able to do while recovering. They spread a blanket under a tree and watched Seung-min run around with other children while the baby grabbed at grass and tried to eat it. "This is nice," Tae-gyu said, leaning back against the tree. His ribs still ached sometimes, but the pain was manageable now. "It really is." Violet adjusted the baby in her lap. "You know what Seung-min told me yesterday." "What?" "That he's glad you got hurt." Tae-gyu's head whipped toward her. "What?" "Not because he wanted you to be in pain," Violet clarified quickly, "but because now you're home more. Now you play with him and eat dinner with us and read him stories. He said he finally feels like he has a dad, not just someone who lives in the same house." The words hit Tae-gyu visibly. He was quiet for a long moment, watching his son play. "I didn't realize. I thought I was doing enough." "You were doing what you thought you had to do, but now you know you can choose differently." "Yeah." He reached over and took her hand. "Yeah, I can." Seung-min ran over then, breathless and grinning. "Dad, come push me on the swings." Tae-gyu looked at Violet, who nodded. "I've got the baby. Go." She watched her husband, still moving a bit stiffly, still healing, follow their son to the swings. Watched Seung-min's face light up when Tae-gyu pushed him higher and higher, both of them laughing. This was what healing looked like, she thought. Not just mended bones and faded bruises, but a whole family learning how to be present with each other. Learning that love meant showing up, being vulnerable, choosing each other every single day. The accident had been terrible, terrifying, the worst 2 weeks of Violet's life. But somehow, it had also been a gift, forcing all of them to see what really mattered before it was too late. "Higher, Dad? You sure? You're already pretty high." "Higher!" Violet smiled, holding their daughter close, and felt gratitude wash over her like sunlight. They were here. They were whole. And they were choosing each other. Thanks so much for reading this whole journey with me. Drop a comment and let me know which part hit you hardest, because I'm really curious what resonated with you. Maybe subscribe if you want more stories like this. No pressure, though.